Ah, those mountaintop experiences. Perhaps we've all had them where we have that moment of clarity. We know exactly who we are or what we're called to do or be. Maybe we know exactly who we're going to marry. Or we finally made that important life decision that we've been struggling with all along. Right there, it's clear. We know what we need to do. I imagine this vision of the future glory of Jesus experienced by these three disciples was something like that for them. They saw clearly for a minute just who Jesus was, and maybe who they were to, and who they were to Jesus and He to them. No wonder they didn't want to come down off that hill. Who would? Well, they couldn't stay up there, and of course, we can't either. I don't know about you, but after a while that clarity starts to fade a little bit, and I struggle to find ways to keep it fresh, or if I lose it completely, to find a way to renew it. One thing I know I have to do to listen to the Spirit speaking to me is go away for a week every year on retreat, because there's too many voices and too much other talking for me to really hear the Spirit unless I go away and pretty much shut everyone and everything out but a good spiritual director, so that I can listen and hear what God is calling me to do and to be. Now, maybe we've had those kinds of experiences in our own personal lives, but getting that kind of clarity in a group can be a little bit more difficult. It's not an easy thing, for example, to get a whole church looking in the same direction, walking more or less the same path, though that is what we are trying to do. I have been thinking of this interim time here at St. Simon's as a kind of extended retreat. And I know it's been quite extended for St. Simon's now, practically 18 months. I've just joined you for these last 5 of it. But it's a longer than usual time of trying to listen to the voice of the Spirit, trying to discern more clearly who we are called to be, and what we are called to do. Hear what the Spirit is saying to God's people, the reader says at the end of every reading. St. Simon's, what are you hearing the Spirit say to you in this interim time? Have you noticed for yourselves any moments of clarity about the direction this church is called to be? What are you hearing? I have had a couple of moments of clarity like that in my time here as your interim. And believe it or not, the last one came at a vestry meeting. I'm not kidding. It was at a vestry meeting. We were sitting there reflecting together on the ways that we'd seen God move in the community that suggested what God was doing among us right now. And there were some lovely reflections about how the community had come together to support one another, especially after we'd had several deaths in the community. Or about how the ministry of St. Simon's just kept going, even in this kind of awkward interim time of some goodbyes. The one that really struck me, though, came at the end of our conversation, when Michael Metzger, who will be junior warden at the end of the annual meeting today, looked at us and said something like, "It seems to me what we're doing right now is discovering our own personality as a church, our own sense of ourselves," and then looking at me said, "without relationship to you." That is, to a rector. And to quote that voice from the cloud from the gospel, all I can say to that is, listen to him. Listen to him. That was such a moment of clarity for me, because that one sentence just encapsulated concisely and beautifully what I think this interim is all about. St. Simon's discovering for itself its own personality, its own mission in the world, as it prepares to call some up to come and walk alongside as you all walk toward that future to which God is calling you. To really take that seriously, to discern who God is calling St. Simon's to be and what God is calling St. Simon's to do, is not the same thing as getting ready for a rector to come and tell you who you're supposed to be and what you are supposed to do. It is the absolute opposite. This time used well is the time to listen to the Spirit, to try new things, to take risks, to dream big, to risk failing, and even to let go of some of the things that St. Simon's has been. After all, those disciples saw an image of the future glory of Jesus. They had yet to walk with him all the way to Calvary and through his death to that new final life of resurrection. That pattern of dying and rising, I think we all know, is part of the pattern of Christian living. And it's been part of the pattern of this community's life together. St. Simon's knows that loss. And we know that God is already bringing forth that new thing that God can do and is doing in this community. Friends, I think we're getting about halfway through our time together. And in this next half, if I may be so bold, my charge to us as a church and to me within it is that we should listen ever more closely to that voice of the Spirit speaking in this community and outside us. That we should be watching attentively to whatever God might be doing in this community. That we should be watching for the leadership of the Spirit along the path to which we are called in our future and in your future together. I feel confident that as this church keeps taking those kinds of steps into here and now, before you know it, a fellow traveler will have come up alongside you. A pastor who is just as committed to that vision that you've discerned. A pastor that wants to walk with you toward that transfigured future. A pastor that wants to walk with you right into that glorious future to which God is calling St. Simon's.